The wind screamed through the canyons of Nevada like a wounded animal. Dust and sleet mixed in the air, lashing against the sparse juniper trees and the face of a man hunched inside a weather-beaten cabin nestled against the rocks. Ethan Cole stood by the flickering flame of his iron stove, one hand resting on a dented coffee mug, the other gripping the edge of the sink. Outside, thunder rolled. Lightning flashed. And beneath it all, a sound that didn't belong. He froze. A shrill cry, high-pitched and jagged, pierced the howl of the storm. Not the wind. Not the thunder. This was different. Living. Desperate. Another cry. Ethan set the mug down slowly. Years had passed since he'd responded to the call of anything in the wild. He'd sworn he wouldn't again, not after what happened. But that sound, it pulled at something buried deep under layers of grief and dust. His boots were on before his mind had finished debating. He grabbed a flashlight, wrapped himself in an old oilskin coat, and stepped out into the storm. Rain stabbed his face, and the cold gnawed at his bones like it knew where he was weakest. The cry came again, weaker this time. Somewhere in the gulch to the south. The ground was slick and uneven, but Ethan moved fast, navigating the terrain with the instincts of someone who'd once lived for it. He hadn't seen another soul in weeks. That's how he preferred it. But the desert didn't care about his preferences. Tonight it had other plans. The sound led him to a narrow clearing near the base of a stony outcrop. His flashlight cut through the rain, and there, crumpled in the mud, was a wild Mustang Mare. She was collapsed on her side, legs shaking, nostrils flaring with every labored breath. Her belly heaved, stretched taut with life. Blood mixed with rain beneath her tail. Her eyes, wide and gleaming in the beam of his flashlight, locked with his. They didn't show fear, only pain. And something else. Pleading. Ethan knelt beside her. "Damn it," he whispered, brushing wet hair out of his face. He had helped dozens of horses deliver over the years, both wild and domestic, but not since the accident. Not since he left everything behind. His hands hovered for a moment, uncertain. The mare screamed again, legs thrashing weakly, her body convulsing with effort. Ethan moved without thinking. Years of training surged to the surface. He placed a firm hand on her flank, whispered nonsense to calm her, and positioned the flashlight against a rock, angling the beam toward her hindquarters. One glance told him the foal was breech. "No, no, no," he muttered, stripping off his coat and tossing it aside. He needed mobility. His fingers, cold and wet, probed gently. The foal's back legs were presenting first. If he didn't act now, both lives would be lost. The mare shuddered violently as he reached inside, guiding the slick legs into a safer angle. Rain pelted his neck. His hands worked quickly but delicately, coaxing nature's course back on track. "Come on, girl," he murmured. "You've got to fight. Just a little longer." Lightning arced across the sky. Thunder followed like the drumbeat of fate. Time vanished. There was only effort, breath, blood, and rain. With a final cry, the mare strained, and the foal slipped free into Ethan's arms. It was motionless. Ethan cradled the wet, fragile body against his chest, using the hem of his shirt to clear mucus from its nose. He rubbed its chest furiously, bending close to listen. No breath. No heartbeat. Just silence. "No. No, not like this," he whispered, pressing his mouth to the tiny nostrils. He breathed for the foal, again and again, desperation building in each exhale. Then, movement. A twitch. A cough. A soft, gasping whinny. Ethan laughed, sharp and raw, the sound surprising him. The foal wiggled weakly in his arms. He laid it beside the mare, who lifted her head to nuzzle it. Her breathing was ragged, but she was alive. So was her baby. Rain still fell, but more gently now, like the sky had wept all it could. Ethan leaned back, mud-soaked and shivering, watching mother and child with a mix of awe and exhaustion. He hadn't felt this alive in years. Not since the day he watched his wife's car disappear into a ravine. Not since the world broke and took everything he loved with it. He hadn't touched another soul since. Yet here he was, holding life in a storm, and feeling something stir where only silence had lived for too long. The foal, chestnut with a white blaze, nursed for the first time. The mare let out a low, exhausted nicker. Ethan smiled faintly. "You did good, Mama," he whispered. He stood, stretching his back, wincing as his joints cracked. His gaze swept the area, making sure the scene was safe. But the moment of peace was short-lived. A rustle from the trees behind him. Ethan turned sharply, instincts flaring. Two shapes moved through the underbrush. Figures. Human. Drenched and camouflaged, rifles slung across their shoulders. One tall and broad, the other wiry, jittery. Poachers. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. The mare stiffened but didn't flee, her energy spent, her foal still wobbling at her side. "Look what we got here," the tall man sneered, stepping into the clearing. Rain dripped off the brim of his camo cap. "Did our job for us, old man." Ethan stepped in front of the mare, hand instinctively reaching toward his belt, but there was no weapon. Just wet fabric and the racing of his pulse. "She just gave birth," Ethan said quietly. "She's not yours. She's wild." "That makes her fair game," the wiry one said, grinning. "And that foal? Even better. Fresh stock." Ethan's fists clenched. "You're not taking them." The tall man raised his rifle, casually. "You gonna stop us? With what?" "Good intentions." Tension filled the air like fog. The only sound was the storm's fading breath and the occasional snort from the mare. She stepped closer to Ethan, placing herself protectively between her foal and the strangers. "You shoot me and you'll answer to the law," Ethan warned. "The law?" The man laughed. "Ain't no one out here but you, the wind, and whatever God you think cares." The foal let out a soft whinny, drawing the tall man's gaze. He took a step forward. That was enough. The mare surged forward, teeth bared, ears pinned flat. She struck like lightning, hooves lashing out. The tall man stumbled back, rifle dropping to the mud. The wiry one shouted, raising his gun, but the mare was already circling, her body shielding the foal, daring them to come closer. Ethan stepped back slowly, urging the foal with him. "Easy," he whispered. "Come on, stay with me." The tension was a hair's breadth from snapping. The poachers hesitated. The mare stamped the ground, snorting fiercely. For a wild horse weakened by labor, she radiated terrifying strength. Maternal fury. The men exchanged a glance. And then, as if the storm itself held its breath, they backed away. Grudgingly. Slowly. Their eyes promised return. Ethan didn't move until they disappeared into the trees. Only then did he collapse to his knees, adrenaline draining like a tide. The foal pressed close to him, trembling. The mare, bloodied but standing, came to his side. He reached out, touched her muzzle gently. She didn't pull away. The wind quieted. The sky began to lighten. Ethan looked out across the drenched landscape, and something inside him shifted. He wasn't sure what came next. The danger wasn't gone. The storm hadn't fixed everything. But in this moment, raw, wild, and unexpected, something had returned. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But purpose. And for the first time in years, he didn't want to be alone when the sun rose. Would you like me to continue with Section 2? By morning, the storm had broken. The desert, usually dry and unyielding, now glistened under a thin veil of dew. Water pooled in the cracks between stones, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. The world looked cleaner, briefly redeemed by the night's fury. Ethan guided the mare and foal back to the cabin at a slow, patient pace. She limped slightly but held her head high, her ears alert despite her exhaustion. The foal, still unsteady, trailed close to her flank, legs wobbling like they didn't belong to him yet. Every few steps, Ethan glanced back over his shoulder. The memory of those men, their cold eyes and loaded rifles, had not left him. He didn't trust they were gone for good. The wilderness had rules, but not everyone respected them. And the moment you let your guard down, it bit hard. Inside the cabin, He spread dry blankets near the stove and coaxed the mare and foal into the warmth. The mare hesitated, wild instincts still burning in her blood. But something in Ethan's calm voice, in his deliberate movements, seemed to reassure her. She entered, slowly, her hooves clicking softly on the wooden floor. The foal followed, wide-eyed and unsure. Ethan sat beside them, his back resting against the wall, boots still caked with mud. The fire crackled softly, casting a golden glow over the small room. Outside, the sun climbed higher, but inside, the world held its breath. He watched the foal nestle against his mother, their breaths sinking in an unspoken rhythm. There was a quiet strength in that bond, pure, instinctive, undeniable. A bond he'd once known. Images flashed through Ethan's mind. A hospital room, white and sterile. Machines beeping. His wife's hand in his, cold and still. The ultrasound picture in his coat pocket. The only proof of the child they never got to meet. Grief, sharp and cruel, pressed against his chest. He clenched his jaw. This wasn't the time. The mare looked at him then. Not in fear, but in a strange, almost understanding silence. Her dark eyes studied him, as if recognizing pain buried beneath his weathered features. She blinked slowly and lowered her head. Hours passed. The foal slept. The mare ate from the flakes of alfalfa Ethan laid out. She drank water from an old metal pail, and let Ethan run his hand gently along her neck. She flinched at first but didn't pull away. Her trust was a fragile thing, not yet earned but tentatively offered. As afternoon light filtered through the windows, Ethan moved to the porch. He scanned the horizon, eyes narrowed. No sign of movement. Still, something gnawed at his nerves, a restlessness, a warning. He had to make a decision. The Bureau would never find her here, not unless someone tipped them off. But if those poachers came back, she wouldn't stand a chance, not in her condition. And the foal, barely hours old, couldn't run. Ethan returned inside and retrieved an old radio from a chest beneath the stairs. It crackled to life, static filling the room. He turned the dial, found the Ranger frequency, and hesitated. He hadn't called them in years. He'd left that world behind, burned the bridges, vanished. Some thought he was dead. Some probably hoped he was. But now, one call could save 2 lives. He pressed the button. "This is Ethan Cole," he said, his voice low but steady. "I've got a wild mare here. She foaled last night. Breech birth, but they're both alive. I need extraction." Quietly. "I'm at Ridge Hollow." Silence followed. Then, a familiar voice crackled through. "Ethan Cole? As in, the Ethan Cole?" "Just send someone," Ethan said, already regretting the call. "No lights. No noise. And no questions." "We'll be there by sundown," the voice replied. "Stay put." Ethan clicked the radio off and stared at it like it might explode. He'd just let the world back in. Whether it would thank him or punish him remained to be seen. Back inside, the mare nickered softly. The foal stirred, blinking up at Ethan with wide, curious eyes. Something stirred in Ethan, too, an echo of a man he used to be. He spent the rest of the afternoon preparing. He packed food, refilled water, gathered old horse tack and cleaned it. He didn't know what kind of transport the Rangers would bring, but he wanted the mare ready, safe, and calm. As he worked, memories resurfaced, of a time when he and his wife would care for rescues together. She had been the heart of their sanctuary, the soul that brought light even to the most broken animals. And now, years later, with her gone, the world had felt dim. But today it flickered again, faint but real. Dusk approached, painting the horizon in shades of gold and bruised purple. The wind picked up again, whispering through the rocks. Ethan stood on the porch, one hand resting on the rail, the other cradling his worn hat. A low rumble echoed in the distance. Not thunder. Engines. He stepped down and walked a few yards toward the ridge. Through the thinning trees, he spotted the glint of metal. A trailer. A Ranger vehicle. And a man stepping out, broad-shouldered, familiar gait. "Jack," Ethan murmured. Jack Mitchell, once his closest friend. Once the man who stood by his side at his wedding. The man Ethan had pushed away after the accident, along with everyone else. Jack approached slowly, his face unreadable. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. "You're alive." Ethan didn't smile. "Just barely." They stood in silence, years stretching between them like a canyon. Finally, Jack looked past him toward the cabin. "She in there?" "Yeah," Ethan nodded. "Gave birth during the storm. Breach. Almost lost them both." Jack let out a low whistle. "You always did have a thing for dramatic rescues. Didn't feel like a choice." Jack's eyes softened. "She trusts you. She let me help her. That's something." They walked back to the cabin together. The mare lifted her head as they entered but didn't panic. The foal nuzzled at her belly, oblivious to the tension. Jack crouched down, eyeing the foal. "He's strong." "You did good." Ethan shrugged. "She did most of it." Jack looked up at him. "You know, we could use someone like you again." "I'm not coming back." "I didn't ask that." Jack rose to his feet. "But I saw the look in your eyes when you talked about saving her. You're not as lost as you think." Ethan didn't reply. They prepared the trailer with blankets and soft hay. With gentle coaxing, the mare followed Ethan out into the fading light, her foal tottering behind her. She paused at the trailer ramp, unsure. Ethan whispered softly, placed his hand on her neck, and walked forward. She followed. Once they were secured, Jack closed the trailer door. "She'll go to the sanctuary near Blackridge," Jack said. "Safe place. They'll treat her right." Ethan nodded, then hesitated. "The foal, he doesn't have a name yet." Jack raised a brow. "You want to name him?" Ethan looked through the slats of the trailer, watching the foal nestle against his mother. "Hope," he said quietly. "Name him Hope." Jack didn't laugh. Didn't question. He just nodded. The truck pulled away, tail lights blinking like fireflies in the deepening dark. Ethan watched until they vanished, swallowed by the night. Alone again, he returned to the porch. The wind brushed past him, gentle now. For the first time in years, it didn't sound like morning. It sounded like a beginning. He sat down, exhaled, and looked up at the stars pushing through the clouds. He had saved a life. Maybe two. And maybe, just maybe, a piece of his own. Would you like me to continue with Section 3? 3 days passed since the trailer disappeared down that winding dirt road, carrying the Mustang Mare and her foal, Hope, into a new chapter. Ethan stayed behind, the cabin feeling both emptier and fuller in their absence. Their presence had disturbed something long buried, pulled emotion from him like water from dry earth. Now, he found himself scanning the ridgeline each morning out of habit, half expecting her silhouette to return. He told himself it was over, that he'd done what he needed to do. But peace didn't come. Something inside remained unsettled. On the 4th day, before the sun broke the horizon, a sound pierced the morning stillness, low, rhythmic, fast. Hoofbeat. Ethan stood from the porch and squinted into the blue-gray dawn. A dark shape approached, fast and determined. His heart leapt, unsure if it was fear or hope driving it. The Mustang Mare. She galloped alone, her body streaked with mud, sides heaving. No trailer. No foal. Just her. Ethan moved down the steps, stunned. She skidded to a halt just feet away, nostrils flared, eyes wild. Her coat was scraped. A small wound on her shoulder bled slowly. "Whoa," he murmured, stepping cautiously closer. "What happened?" She didn't bolt. She didn't collapse. She turned her head, toward the ridge, and whinnied, sharp and desperate. Ethan understood in an instant. Something had gone wrong. He saddled his old gelding, Smoke, within minute. The mare didn't wait. She trotted ahead as though guiding him, each step urgent, unrelenting. They rode fast, deeper into the hills than Ethan had dared venture in months. They crested a bluff just after sunrise. The sight below made Ethan's breath catch. The Ranger trailer sat jackknifed at the base of a slope, one wheel torn off, the back door wide open. The truck was empty, tilted at a precarious angle. Jack was nowhere in sight. Ethan dismounted before Smoke fully stopped and scrambled down the hill. Inside the trailer, blood, hoof marks, snapped halter rope. The mare's foal was gone. Panic gripped Ethan's chest. He turned to the mare. "Where is he?" She neighed again, more agitated this time, and darted toward a narrow path that disappeared into dense woods. Ethan followed. They ran for what felt like miles, over stones, through tangled brush, beneath low-hanging branches. Then the mare stopped so suddenly that Ethan nearly collided with her. In the clearing ahead, a rough structure stood. Not a house. More like a hunting shack. A tarp covered one wall. Smoke rose from a small, makeshift chimney. Someone was here. Ethan crouched behind a tree, watching. Voices. Male. Sharp. One angry, the other calm, too calm. And then, a high-pitched, panicked whinny. Hope. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. He scanned the area, memorizing every window, every escape route. Whoever had taken the foal didn't know, or didn't care, that the mare was coming back with help. The mare paced behind him, torn between fear and fury. Ethan placed a hand on her neck, grounding her. He crept forward, keeping low. A window revealed part of the interior, dim light, rusted tools hanging from the walls, a crate in the center. And inside the crate, tangled in rope, was the foal. Eyes wide. Sides heaving. Too young, too fragile for this. Two men sat nearby. One cleaned a rifle, casually, as if waiting. The other leaned against the wall, chewing jerky and watching the foal like he was prey. Ethan recognized the one with the rifle. Wayne Keller. Former wrangler turned outlaw. The kind who captured wild horses not for redemption, but for profit. Known for selling Mustangs to overseas buyers under the radar. Brutal. Calculated. Dangerous. Ethan had crossed paths with him once, back when he wore a badge. And now fate had crossed their trails again. He stepped back, fast but quiet. If he charged in now, he'd die. And worse, the foal might not survive the chaos. Then the mare moved past him. "Wait," he whispered. But she was already slipping through the brush, angling around the back. Silent, precise. Instinct told her what no human could. That her baby was inside. That danger waited. Ethan had one chance. He found a rusted can and filled it with stones. He circled wide until he reached the opposite side of the shack and hurled it into the trees. It clanged, loud as a gunshot. Inside, both men jumped. One cursed. The rifleman stood. "I'll check it," he said. "Perfect." As Keller exited, Ethan sprang. They collided in a blur of motion. The rifle skidded across the dirt. Ethan grabbed Keller's arm and twisted, slamming him into the wall. The other man inside yelled. Then the mare crashed through the tarp. Ethan ducked. Hooves flew. The second man screamed and fell as the mare lunged for the crate. She reared, teeth bared, and landed beside her foal. In the chaos, Ethan grabbed the foal's ropes and cut them loose with a pocketknife. The baby stumbled free, eyes wide. "Go!" Ethan yelled. The mare turned, pressed her muzzle against the foal, and nudged him out the door. Ethan backed out after them. Keller groaned on the ground, blood on his lip, fury in his eyes. "Next time I see you." "There won't be a next time," Ethan snapped. Smoke waited at the edge of the woods. Ethan lifted the foal carefully across the saddle and held him tight. The mare needed no instruction, she followed, every nerve in her body alert and watching for danger. They rode until their lungs burned, until the world quieted again. When they reached the cabin, Ethan dismounted and fell to his knees. He was bruised, scraped, exhausted. But they were safe. All three of them. The mare nuzzled her foal, who curled beside her, trembling but alive. Ethan leaned against the wall of the cabin and exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, he felt purpose. Not duty or survival, but something deeper. Hope. It had a name now. And it breathed. Later, as the sun dipped low, a ranger truck rolled into the clearing. Jack stepped out, limping, with a gash over his brow. "They ambushed us," he said without preamble. "Cut the brake line. Left me tied in the woods. Took the foal." Ethan nodded. We got him back. Jack looked at the mare, then at Ethan. You went through hell to save them. So did she. Jack stared at the horizon. The Bureau wants to relocate her to a facility. They're worried she's unpredictable. That she's too wild. Ethan didn't answer. Jack looked over. But I told them she bonded with you. That maybe, just maybe, you're what she needs. Ethan turned to the mare. She stood tall, proud despite the scars. Her foal pressed against her side. I'm not sure I'm what anyone needs, he said softly. Jack smirked. Funny. Looks like they disagree. As the truck left, Ethan sat on the porch step. The mare lay nearby, watching the trees. The foal slept between them. Ethan leaned back, heart quiet for the first time in years. He thought of his wife. He thought of the child they never got to hold. And then he looked at the foal, small, alive, against all odds. A second chance had galloped into his life, bloody and wild. And this time, he wasn't letting go. Would you like me to write Section 4 next? A week passed since the foal had been rescued from that backwoods shack, but time moved differently now. The cabin, once echoing with silence and regret, hummed softly with life. Mornings began with the gentle rhythm of hooves and soft nickers. The mare, whom Ethan had finally named Serenity, had accepted the clearing as her own. Her foal, Hope, trailed behind her with eager curiosity, tugging at Ethan's shirt when he worked or nuzzling his hand in the quiet moments when no words were needed. Ethan had rebuilt the paddock behind the cabin, one board at a time, the kind of patient labor that soothed the scars no one could see. He worked in long, measured stretches, not because anyone asked him to, but because it gave him something that mattered. Serenity never wandered far from the fence, always keeping a watchful eye, protective but no longer guarded. There was a quiet trust blooming between them, cautious and real. One morning, a soft knock rattled the cabin door. Ethan opened it to find Jack again, holding a clipboard and wearing a look Ethan recognized, equal parts duty and hesitation. We need to talk, Jack said. Ethan stepped aside, letting him in. The warmth of the fire inside contrasted with the frost still clinging to the edges of the world outside. There's been a decision, Jack began. Washington reviewed the report. They want Serenity transferred to a sanctuary in Colorado. The foal too. Ethan stared at him. Why? She's strong-willed. They still think she's a risk. After the ambush and escape, they think she'll draw attention. Headlines. She's not a headline, Ethan said coldly. She's a survivor. Jack sighed. I know that. But they don't see it the way we do. To them, she's data. Case number. A decision on a screen. The fire crackled between them. Ethan lowered his gaze. When? End of the week. Transports scheduled. He nodded slowly, but his hands had clenched into fists. Serenity had come to him on her own terms. She had fought through pain, fear, and violence to return not just for her foal, but for something she couldn't name. Something Ethan didn't fully understand until now. She chose to trust him. And now he was supposed to hand her over? As Jack stood to leave, he paused at the door. There's another option, he said, not turning around. But it's not official. Ethan lifted his head. You can file for personal guardianship under the Wild Horse Reform Clause. It's rarely approved. You'd need a vet's letter, a behavioral report, an environmental assessment. And even then, it's a long shot. What's the timeline? You've got 5 days. Jack left without another word. Ethan spent the rest of that day in motion. He called the vet who'd helped Serenity deliver. He spoke to a wildlife behaviorist he once knew from his ranger days. He documented everything: photos, videos, records, letters. Every moment that proved Serenity wasn't dangerous, just misunderstood. He didn't sleep that night nor the next. The application grew heavier with every form, every file, every technicality that could bury hope under bureaucracy. Still, he kept going. Serenity sensed the tension. She stood by him in the paddock long after sunset, watching him. Hope played nearby, unaware of the looming weight of separation. "I can't lose you," Ethan whispered into the fading dusk. "Not again." On the 5th morning, he emailed the completed packet. Hours later, a single automated reply came through. Asterisk application received. Review process underway. Asterisk. He went outside, unsure what to do with the waiting. Serenity approached, resting her head gently on his shoulder. Ethan closed his eyes. He wasn't praying, he didn't know how anymore. But in that silence, he made a promise. No matter the outcome, he would not let her be forgotten. The next day, a different vehicle rolled up the drive. Not a government truck. A sedan. A woman stepped out, older, refined, with silver-streaked hair pulled into a ponytail. She introduced herself simply. Dr. Marianne Wexley. Equine psychologist. "I'm here for the assessment." Ethan blinked. "They sent you." "They asked me to observe. Unofficially, off the record. But I've read your application. I wanted to see for myself." She watched Serenity for a long time, standing still as stone. The mare stood tall and calm, though her eyes followed the stranger's every move. "She's not wild," Marianne murmured. "She's aware." Ethan nodded. "She remembers everything. The good and the bad." Over the next few hours, Marianne walked the grounds, observing Serenity's reactions to different sounds, objects, commands. The mare responded not with fear, but with fierce intelligence. She guarded hope but never lashed out. When Marianne stepped back to take notes, Serenity approached her, snorted softly, and then walked away. "She's testing me," Marianne said with a small smile. "She's choosing," Ethan replied. That evening, Marianne sat on the porch beside Ethan, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "She doesn't belong in a holding facility," she said. "She's bonded with this land, with you. Moving her would break that."